Hi, everyone. I have been hearing how much you are struggling with paraphrasing. And so the purpose of this video is to spend a little bit more time with paraphrasing and to help you get more comfortable. But something that I do want to say about paraphrasing is that it is a difficult skill that actually takes a lot of time to get good at. It does take practice to get good at. And when you start, you've probably noticed that it goes very, very slow. Over time, you won't have to do all the steps in this video. They'll just kind of start to come naturally to you. But for now, I know that the process is slow and difficult. So please be patient with yourself. It takes a while to be able to paraphrase quickly and easily. So let me start by talking about what we're really doing when we're paraphrasing. We usually say that to paraphrase is to say the same thing with different words. So let me take those one by one, starting with say the same thing. Why is it so important to say what the author said again? The main reason that this is an important academic skill is because saying the same thing that the author said is a way of showing that you understood what the author said. If you can say it back, then it shows that you understand. This is something we do a lot in communication, right? Somebody says, "Can you get eggs, bread, and milk?" And then you say back, "Wait, you want eggs, bread, and milk?" And the reason we do that is to show our comprehension. Paraphrasing as a skill is the same thing in academics. It's a way to show the professor that you understood what you read, and we use it at all levels. Even PhDs are paraphrasing to show that they understood what they read. And so we're trying to get that same meaning as a way of showing that we deeply understood. The second part, same meaning, different words. Different words is so important because of the issue of plagiarism. If you're saying the same meaning in the same words, it becomes a really serious problem in academics. Some of you probably already know the consequences for plagiarism are really serious. You can get an F in a whole class because you plagiarized. And when I receive your paper as a professor, I have a plagiarism app that the school puts on everything that you submit to me. And if that app sees two words together, this is really true. If it sees two words together that are also in the original text, or if it sees two words together that are also together anywhere on the internet, it sends up its alarms and it goes, hey, it looks like this person wrote something that somebody else already wrote. It looks like this person combined two words that are also combined somewhere else, somewhere in the internet. And it'll give me a flag and say, you need to check for plagiarism. So that's why it's so important that we find ways to paraphrase with completely different words in a completely different order so that you're not getting flagged for plagiarism and you're not risking getting in trouble for the work that you're doing. All right, that's why we're doing what we're doing. Let's kind of go a little more deeply into what we're doing. I want to go through some strategies. Again, going slowly, understanding we're new at this. I want to walk through the strategies for paraphrasing. So I'm going to start with something that a student said to me. I said that, the purpose of paraphrasing is to show that you understood what you read. And the student said, well, what if I don't understand what? If you don't understand what you're reading, paraphrasing can actually be really helpful to get you to a place of understanding. I'm going to show you the strategy that I use when I don't understand the text that I'm reading, and I need to kind of take it apart to understand it better. And I also use this strategy for paraphrasing. So let's put those two things together. I want to practice using this quote from James Baldwin: "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." This is a really beautiful quote, and the meaning is pretty deep. I think it's actually pretty difficult to understand fully the first time you read it, so it's a good thing to practice with. The first part of my strategy when I see something like this is to break the text into smaller pieces so that I don't have to deal with everything at once. If you look at this quotation, Where do you think is the natural place to break it into 2 or 3 parts? If you were going to break this up and deal with it piece by piece, where would you break it? I chose to break it here at the comma. For me, there are 2 natural parts. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. You might have put the break in a different place, and that's okay. This isn't an exact science. Now that I've broken the quotation into 2 parts, I'm going to start by just attacking the first part. When I'm dealing with a new text and I'm not totally sure what it means, or if I'm not sure where to start with paraphrasing, I always start by looking for the action word. The reason I do that is because every sentence has an action word, and also the action word is usually the heart of the sentence. So at least when I'm looking for it, I know I'm going to find it, and I know it'll probably be an important part of the sentence. So in this text, see which action words you can find, or if you're a grammar person, you're looking for the verbs. I found 2, is faced and be changed. These are the 2 actions I found in this sentence. When I find the actions, I ask myself, is there anything that's connected to or goes with the action that needs to kind of stay together? When I look at this text, the first thing I see is that the word can belongs with be changed. It kind of changes the meaning, and it's an important part of the action. So I'm going to connect and make a phrase that says can be changed. I think that goes together. I also noticed the connection between faced and everything. The structure of the sentence is really complicated, but when I ask face what, my answer is face everything, right? He's saying face everything. And then I'm going to ask that same question for change. So in this sentence, change what? Again, it's change everything. The structure of this sentence is so confusing that I think I'm going to put it in an order that's a little bit easier for me to digest. In order to do that, I need to ask, who is facing and who is changing? Or what is facing and what is changing? Unfortunately, this sentence doesn't give me anything. It doesn't say not everything that is faced by Americans or not everything that is changed by young people. Like, it doesn't say who's doing it. So I kind of have to guess. And because it's not there, I'm going to guess that who's doing it is people. I think it's probably just speaking generally, and that's why there's nothing there to say who or what. So it's saying people face not everything, and people change not everything. What a confusing way for this sentence to be written. Let me simplify it for myself. It's saying not everything that people face, people can change. I like the new structure I made because it's a lot easier for me to understand than the complex grammar structure of the original quotation. So I kept the meaning, I just made it easier for me to hold in my head. So now that I've got that, I'm going to try to understand it word by word. There is a word in here that I'm not super sure about, which is face. The word face can have a lot of meanings. Here it's an action. So I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to look at the dictionary and not the thesaurus. When you're paraphrasing, there is a strong temptation to go to oh no, this is another one of those words that it's hard for me to say. Let me try it again. When you're doing paraphrasing, there is a strong temptation to use a thesaurus, especially if you have an online thesaurus. I'm going to advise that you don't do that. The thesaurus gives you words that are related to the word that you're looking at, but the meanings of those words can actually be dramatically different. The thesaurus is not helpful in paraphrasing. It actually usually makes your paraphrasing kind of weird and confusing. So if you don't know a word, use the dictionary instead. Okay, now I can stop saying thesaurus. I went to the dictionary to look for the word face, and it said to face, confront and deal with, or accept a difficult or unpleasant task, fact, or situation. Great. Now I know what we're talking about, face. It's like in that idiom, face the music or face my competitor, right? It's to deal with something, to accept something. I'm going to put the words that I like with the same meaning here. Face means deal with or accept. Now I'm going to go for this other main word, everything, and come up with some other ways I could say that. Other ways to say not everything, not all the things, or not all things. People, I don't need to change because that's my word that I added in the first place, so I don't have to worry. Okay, moving on. The next part says people can change. Not all the things that people deal with, people can change. And again, I want to build up different words that have basically the same meaning. So for change, I suggest alter, transform, make different. I'm about to do for can. So can you make a few guesses about other ways to say can before I go to the next slide? I have be able to, have the ability to, have the power to, possibility to. All of these have the meaning of can. The reason I'm making a list of a lot of words is so that I have a lot of options. Sometimes one word is enough and you can stop there. So now I've changed my sentences. I changed not everything that people face to not all the things that people deal with. Then I'm going to pick from my options here. Instead of people can change, I changed people have the power to transform. I've swapped out the words in the original quotation for words that have basically the same meaning. The next thing I want to do is look at the new sentences with the new words and make sure that they don't sound crazy. And also make sure they sound like something I would actually say. I don't want some weird sentence that's just word change, word change, word change. I want it to sound like something that I would actually write or would actually come out of my mouth. So let me look at this. I wrote, not all the things that people deal with, people have the power to transform. Yeah, that sounds super awkward and not like something I would really say. I'm going to play with this a little bit until it sounds like something I would actually write. How about this? People don't have the power to transform all the things they deal with. That sounds much more natural to me. If you look at the colors on the slide, you can see I kept everything from the original awkward sentence and changed it so that it's in a different order that sounds more natural. People is still there, don't and not are still there, have the power, transform, all the things, deal with, everything is still there. I just put it in an order that sounds way less weird. A good thing to remember is if you're in the middle of paraphrasing and it sounds weird, don't worry. That final step will let you fix it. So don't be a perfectionist. Start with weird and then change it to something that sounds more natural later. Okay, I'm going to attack the next part of the quotation. The next part said, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I'm going to use my same strategy over again. I'm going to find the actions. Look at the quotation and pick out the action words. They are the same as in the previous part of the quotation. Be changed is faced. My next question, what is connected to those actions? Look for connections. Again, we have can, which really belongs with be changed. This is one idea, can be changed. Something else. When I say what can be changed, the answer is nothing. Change, nothing. Those are connected to each other. Look at the other action word, face. Face what? Careful, this is a little tricky. Face it. It is connected here. So change, nothing, face it. Then I'm going to ask, okay, I have these actions. I have the words that are connected to the actions. Who or what is doing those actions? Take a look. Who is doing change, nothing, and face it? Just like previously, the quotation doesn't tell us, but we can guess that it's speaking generally. People can change nothing. People face it. Again, we have a strange grammatical structure, but we can figure out the meaning this way. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to change this into an order that makes more sense for me. People can change nothing until people face it. Wow, when I put it in that order, it makes way more sense to me, a lot easier to deal with. Okay, now that I have the structure and meaning of the sentence figured out, I'm going to change those words. The first word I'm going to change is can. We've already done that. We've got some examples. Be able to, have the ability to, have the power to, possibility to. Next one is change. We did that one again. So alter, transform, make different. The next word is more difficult, nothing. There are not a lot of ways to say nothing, but I think we can put a few words in the box and come back to them later, just that have the general idea. I'm going to say never is close to nothing, impossible is close to nothing, no option is close to nothing. I don't know how great these are, but I'm going to deal with them later. In paraphrasing, I don't want to waste too much time getting it perfect. I just want to keep going. Next word is until. Do you have a word that means until? Before might have the same meaning. And then we're back to face, which we already looked at, deal with, or accept. Okay, so now I have all these alternative words. Be able to, transform, no option, accept, and I want to turn these into some kind of a sentence. It's not going to be a beautiful sentence. It might even be a weird sentence, but I do want to make these word changes together in one sentence. How about this one? It is impossible for people to transform something before they accept it. I took all the words from the original, everything has been replaced, and I have the same meaning down at the bottom here. If you look at the colors, you can see they all match up. Now I'm going to make sure it sounds like me and not too weird. It is impossible for people to transform something before they accept it. It's not too bad. I think I could make it just a little bit simpler though. How about this? No one can transform something before they accept it. I think that's simpler. It sounds more like me. It sounds more like a human being. I'm going to go with that. Okay, I attacked the two parts of the quotation separately. Now I'm going to put them back together. My first paraphrase, people don't have the power to transform all of the things they deal with. My second paraphrase, no one can transform something before they accept it. Of course, this came directly from the writer James Baldwin, so I want to make sure that I give him credit. I'll add that in. James Baldwin said that people don't have the power to transform all the things they deal with. No one can transform something before they accept it. That does not sound right, but when I do my checks, I'll figure out why. All right, time to do those checks. I'm going to ask the important questions to make sure my paraphrase is good. First one, Is it the same meaning? Well, let's look at these two. Baldwin, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I am amazed how much better I understand James Baldwin's quotation now that I have taken the time to paraphrase. Like, I kind of understood it before, but now that I've gotten in there and taken it apart and done the paraphrase, I understand the quotation so much better. It was a really good strategy for understanding. Baldwin says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. My paraphrase. James Baldwin said that people don't have the power to transform everything they deal with. No one can transform something before they accept it. Yeah, I thought this was strange, and it's really not the same meaning. Something is missing in my paraphrase that is in Baldwin's original quotation. Take a second and look at these together and see if you can see what I missed when I did my paraphrase. As always, feel free to stop the video if you want more time to try to figure it out. This is what I missed. He was making a comparison. He put but in between. But's a really important word. It really changes the meaning. So I need to add the meaning of but. I'm going to paraphrase it as however. Now I say, James Baldwin said that people don't have the power to transform all the things they deal with. However, no one can transform something before they accept it. Now my paraphrase really matches up with what Baldwin said. All right, second check. Is it totally different words? This is my plagiarism check. I want to make sure that I don't have two words together in my paraphrase that are also in the original text. Take a minute and look. Is there anything where there are two words together that are the same? I see nothing. I think I did a really good job. There's no words that are the same in the original and in mine. Next question, are the words in a different order? Remember, for plagiarism, it's not just that you can't have the same words, but you can't have word for word in the same order. So if you just change every word in a sentence, but you don't change the order of the words, it's still plagiarism. All right, let's check it. All right, let's see. How can I check order? I think I'm going to do it with color. So here, for example, not everything be changed. It goes red, blue, green. And then here it goes, don't transform all the things, red, green, blue. This is pretty much in a different order than the original. It's not a word for word translation in the same order. So I feel good about question 3. Last question, does it sound like something you would actually say? Let's read my paraphrase and make sure there's nothing weird or awkward left. James Baldwin said that people don't have the power to transform all the things they deal with. However, no one can transform something before they accept it. Not bad. I actually feel pretty good about this. I fixed the 2 sections when I was working on it to make sure they didn't sound too awkward. And what I have here actually sounds pretty good to me. So I just went over the strategies that I use for paraphrasing. The first thing is that I cut it into pieces. Then when I take a piece, the first thing I do is find the action word or the verb. Then I find what is related to that verb. Do what, take what, change what. And also are there things like can and should that are changing the meaning of the verb. The next thing that I do is ask who or what is doing the verb. Who's changing, who's transforming, who is jumping, and figure out what that is. When I'm finished, I might change the structure of the sentence a little bit to make it simpler or clearer. After that, I go through and I change those major words and make any adjustments to the sentence to make sure that it's following those same 4 rules. Is it the same meaning? Is it different words? Are the words in a different order? And does it sound like something I would actually say? If this is helpful, wonderful. Feel free to stop the video here. I'm glad we had this time together. If you're still feeling like I would like to see that in action a little bit more, wonderful, stay with me. I'm going to go through some examples of this strategy with longer texts. So let's spend a little more time together paraphrasing. All right, now that we have the basics, let's try a longer text. Here's a text from Arvin Weiss. Some of you have read this in your classes, some have not. The text says, as a psychotherapist, I am often surprised and sometimes amazed by the variety of ways people come up with to be critical of themselves. I'm not smart enough. It's all my fault. I'm just not that good at that, etc. Perhaps the most common judgment I hear people make about themselves is that they are lazy. Okay, here's our text. Because this is a longer text, I do want to start by cutting out anecdotes, repeats, and examples. I don't want to waste my time paraphrasing things that are just repeated, or they're examples that aren't really important to what the person is saying, or it's like a story or an anecdote that's not that important. In some of my classes, I call this cutting the fluff. And we do this so that we don't waste time paraphrasing things that aren't necessary to keep the meaning of the original text. Okay, let's do it. The first thing I'm going to cut in this text is, and sometimes amazed. The reason I'm cutting it is because often surprised and sometimes amazed is basically the same meaning. I don't think I need both of these things to understand the text. Take a look at this part of the text here. I'm going to cut something else. See if you can guess what I'm going to cut next. As always, pause the video if you need more time to guess what's going to get cut next. The next thing I cut were these examples of things that people say. I'm not smart enough. It's all my fault. I'm just not good at that. These are just examples of criticisms that people give to themselves, and I don't think they're totally necessary to understanding the text. They help, but they're not necessary, so I cut them. Okay, now I've taken away everything that would waste my time if I tried to paraphrase it, and I'm left with just the most important parts of this text. The next thing I'm going to do is break it into parts. So look at the text and decide where naturally you would break this into 2 or 3 parts. Where would you make the divisions here? I made one division here between the first part and the second. You might have broken up even more by breaking where there's a comma. That's fine. I'm happy with these 2 pieces, but remember, it's up to you. Whatever size piece is good for you, that works. All right, let's attack my first part. My first part says, as a psychotherapist, I am often surprised by the variety of ways that people come up with to be critical of themselves. In this text, I found am surprised and also come up with. These are the actions in the sentence. Then I want to ask myself, are there any words that go with the actions, that belong next to the actions and contribute to their meaning? The first thing I found was surprised and often. Often definitely is describing surprise and goes with it. Look for the other things you see that go with the actions. I might also include variety of ways, because if I ask, what do people come up with? The answer is they come up with the variety of ways. So that might also be connected to the action here. Now I ask myself, who or what is doing these actions? Remember, in the last one, it wasn't clear. In this one, it is more clear. I am often surprised. People come up with a variety of ways. Unlike with the James Baldwin quote, you can see who or what is doing that action, I and people. Now that I have the main parts of the sentence, the actions, what's related to the actions, and who's doing the actions, I'm going to start changing the words. And the first word I have to change here is actually a little bit tricky. It's I. Now, normally there's no paraphrase for I. I is the only word that means I, but I also want to ask myself, well, who's I in this? And in this, it's very clear who's I. The person is writing about his personal experience. It's the author. His name is Weiss. So I'm going to paraphrase I as Weiss, because that's what he means when he says I. After Weiss, the next thing is often. Please think about a way you might paraphrase often. I chose a lot of times. So now I have Weiss a lot of times. The next one is surprised. Think about how you would paraphrase surprised. I chose can't believe. Next up, the variety of ways. Think of how you might say that differently. I chose all the strategies, all for variety and strategies for ways. The next is people. One way to say that might be humans. The next word is come up with. Think about another way you might say that. I chose invent. So now I've taken all the major or core words from the text and I've paraphrased them. Now I need to add in the meaning that comes from the other parts of the sentence that I haven't paraphrased yet. The first one is as a psychotherapist. So I have to find a way to put in here that Weiss is speaking from his job as a therapist or a psychotherapist. Think about where you might put that. I added it here between Weiss and a lot of times. Weiss, who is a therapist. That's my way of including it. The other thing that's missing is to be critical of themselves, which goes with ways. So I need to include the information that when I talk about strategies in my paraphrase, I'm talking about strategies to be critical of themselves. Think about how you might add that. I put it as to judge ourselves. So now I've taken everything from the original text and I've paraphrased it so that it's in totally new words. And now I need to turn that into a real sentence that's not a bunch of colored words in boxes. Before I put my sentence up, think of a way that you might combine these to make a sentence. My sentence looks like this. A lot of times, Weiss, who is a therapist, can't believe all the strategies that humans invent to judge ourselves. So I kept everything from my paraphrase and I just put it into a sentence that makes sense to me. Okay, now I'm going to look at the next part of the text. This is my paraphrase of the first part. And the second part says, perhaps the most common judgment I hear people make about themselves is that they are lazy. I'm going to look at that part of the text and find the actions. Take a minute, look, and see if you can find the actions before I bring them up on the screen. I found 3, the word hear, make, and is. Now I ask myself, okay, what words are connected to those actions? I highlighted themselves because make about what? Well, make about themselves. So that feels like it belongs. One more word that's connected here is judgment. It's a little bit weird, but if I ask make what, then people make judgments. So I think that's connected too. Again, if you're not doing this exactly like me, It's really okay. This is just a strategy to help you find it. Now I ask, who or what is doing the actions? Look at this sentence, take a minute. What do you think is doing here? And what's doing make? I chose I for here and people for make. Again, I means Weiss. So I'm going to paraphrase I as Weiss. How about here? I'm going to say Weiss listens to. I know here and listen aren't exactly the same, but I think it works here. All right, for people, I paraphrase that as others. Next up, make about themselves. Since we're talking about making judgment about themselves, I chose criticize. I know it's not a one-for-one paraphrase, but I think the meaning is the same, right? When he says make judgments about themselves, what he really means is criticize. And I will keep themselves to make clear who's being criticized. All right, so here's the heart of the sentence. Weiss listens to others criticize themselves. Now I need to add in the information that's necessary to make sure that the meaning is the same. The first thing I need to add in is perhaps the most common. So we have the idea of perhaps, and we have the idea of common. I don't think perhaps is super important. I think it's just a way that he speaks. I don't think maybe is a very important part of this sentence, but you might choose to include it. And most common. So think how you would add those. I got rid of the meaning of perhaps and just kept often. Weiss often listens. The other part that I need to include is what that judgment or criticism is. And that judgment is that they are lazy. How would you include that as a paraphrase? I put it here. In this example, I thought it wasn't a good idea to paraphrase the word lazy because lazy is the title of his article and it's the thing that he's talking about. If I change the word, I'm going to totally lose the meaning of what Weiss is saying. He's talking about the word lazy. If I change it, the meaning will be gone. But I have to be careful of the plagiarism checker. So I want to make sure that I'm showing that it's an on-purpose choice not to paraphrase lazy. That's why I put the quotation marks around it. The quotation marks say, I know this is Weiss's word, not mine, and I'm choosing to use it on purpose. All right, now everything important from the original text is here, and I need to combine it into a sentence. Before I show you my sentence, take a minute and think how you would combine these. I did this. Weiss often listens to others criticizing themselves as lazy, in quotation marks. Now I'm going to put the two parts of the text back together again. I have Weiss's at the top and mine at the bottom. I want to make sure that the paraphrase sounds like something I would actually say. I want to check for awkwardness and weirdness. My original paraphrase was a lot of times Weiss, who is a therapist, and a lot of times sounded weird to me. So I'm changing it to Weiss often. Then I'm going to add in the who is a therapist. Now I'm saying Weiss, who is a therapist, often. Can't believe all the strategies that humans invent to judge ourselves. I'm going to keep that pretty much the same. And the next part says, again, Weiss often. So I need to change that to make it less awkward. I'm going to say, the judgment he hears most is, I am lazy. That way I'm not repeating Weiss often. I'm happy with my new paraphrase. It sounds like something I would really say. Weiss, who is a therapist, often can't believe all the strategies that humans invent to judge ourselves. The judgment he hears most is, I am lazy. Of course, I need to credit the author, but I've already done that. When I paraphrased I as Weiss, I put the credit in there. And so I don't need to add anything like according to. It's already there. I want to check to make sure that my paraphrase is the same meaning, different words, words in a different order, and that it sounds like me before I go forward. Okay, maybe you're thinking, yeah, I get this paraphrasing thing. I am on top of this. This is awesome. I'm king of the world. And maybe you're thinking, you know, I could actually use one more practice. If that's you, stick with me. If you're ready to go, bye. You can stop the video now. But if you'd like to see one more practice, hang around with me and I'll go through it one more time. All right, let's do it. All right, here's a new text from Weiss. Lazy is a particularly shaming label in our culture. America is the land of opportunity. We're a country founded by Europeans, fleeing an aristocracy in which one's station in life was limited by one's birth, in order to found a meritocracy in which hard work could overcome any obstacle, where anyone could become a millionaire or even president. Americans see hard work as the great equalizer, and we admire industry over ability. If you're not succeeding in something, it must be because you're not trying hard enough. Okay, let's take this text and go through the steps. The first thing we want to do is save time by cutting out repeats, anecdotes, and examples, the fluff. If you're wondering, what's the difference between the cutting the fluff for a paraphrase and cutting the fluff for a summary? Cutting the fluff for a summary is cutting way more. A paraphrase is usually close to the length of the original text, whereas a summary is much shorter. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. So look at this text, and I'm going to start cutting the fluff, but before I do, take a second, and if you need to, pause the video and see what you would cut. The first thing that I took out was the supporting information about what makes America the land of opportunity, sort of the history that supports why we have this idea. It's not central to understanding the text, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out. Once I've taken that out, this is what's left. Looking at just the black text, where would you make divisions if you were going to cut this into smaller pieces so that you would work on the paraphrasing in small bites? I cut it into 3 pieces, one for each sentence. You might have done it differently. If you did, no worries. Okay, let's attack the first part of the text. I'm going to start by finding the actions. Lazy is a particularly shaming label in our culture. America is the land of opportunity. All right, find the actions. There are 2, and they are both is. All right, does anything go with the actions? Take a look. When I ask, is what? The first answer is a particularly shaming label. And when I say America is what? The answer is the land of opportunity. So I'm going to keep these in green. Now I ask, who or what is doing that action? So the action is B. Who or what is doing B? Lazy for the first one, and America for the second one. Now that we have the heart of the text, we're going to change the words. Start with lazy. We cannot change it for the reason that I talked about before. Lazy, the word, is actually the topic of this article. If we change it, we'll totally lose the meaning. So my paraphrase is the word lazy in quotation marks. There is no paraphrase for is or be, so don't worry about that, but take the meaning of the next section. Is a particularly shaming label. How can we paraphrase that? Keep the meaning, say it in another way. I went with this route. Makes people feel bad. It's not, again, I didn't change it word for word, but I think that what I said keeps the meaning, right? Lazy is a shaming label. The word lazy makes people feel bad. To me, that's basically the same thing. I feel pretty good about my paraphrase. Next one, America. How would you paraphrase that? And is the land of opportunity. We're looking for a phrase that means is the land of opportunity. I changed the order a little bit here and I said dreams come true. For me, land of opportunity and dreams can come true is the same meaning. So dreams can come true in the US. Now that I have the heart of the text paraphrased, I'm going to add the important information that's left over. The first part is in our culture. So the word lazy makes people feel bad, and specifically that happens in our culture. How can we add that meaning? I did it by changing people and making it more specific. The word lazy makes Americans feel bad, or American people feel bad, and then keeping dreams come true in the US. Now that I've paraphrased everything by changing the words, I need a sentence. Before I show you my sentence, take a minute and think how you might write this. I wrote it this way. The word lazy makes American people feel bad because dreams come true in the US. I added in that meaning of because. I think that's what the author is saying. He didn't use the word because, but I see that cause connection between those two sentences, so I added that word in here. All right, let's attack the next part of the text. Americans see hard work as the great equalizer, and we admire industry over ability. Look for the actions. See and admire. Now, what's connected to the actions? Are there words that modify them or receive the actions? You might be asking yourself, see what, admire what? See hard work, admire industry. Now that we have the actions and their connected words, ask who or what is doing the actions. Look at those actions and ask who or what is doing them. Americans and we. Now that we have the heart of the meaning, we're going to change the words. Start with Americans. How would you paraphrase that? I chose people in the US. With this next one, see, be careful, because see doesn't have the meaning of look here. It's not looking at something or seeing something in the way that we usually think about it. Here, see is a metaphor. So what does see mean in this text? I think it's something close to believe, right? If I see you as a friend, I believe that you are my friend. All right, next one. Hard work. I chose to change the structure here, working hard. Next up, we. Who is we talking about? Again, it's people in the US. That's what we is standing for here. Next word, admire. I chose respect. Industry is one I think I'm going to have to go to the dictionary for. Like, I know that industry can mean like, oh, this is my industry that I work in. But I don't think that that is what this means here. And I want to make sure. So let me go to the dictionary. The dictionary definition is hard work or diligence. So I'm glad I looked. It's definitely a different meaning here. So we respect hard work or diligence. I'm going to call that being diligent. So here again, I have the heart of the text. People in the US believe working hard. People in the US respect being diligent. Now I'm going to add the important information that isn't there already. First thing, the great equalizer. This is a little bit confusing. If it's an equalizer, it's something that makes people or things equal. So how can we say that? I'm going to say people in the US believe working hard makes us equal. And the next part is industry over ability. So over, more than, and ability. Think of how you would paraphrase that. I paraphrased over as more than and ability as talent. Now I have everything from the text. I'm going to turn it into a sentence. Before I show you my sentence, think about how you would do it. I wrote, people in the US believe that working hard makes us equal. And then instead of repeating people in the US again, I wrote, and respect being diligent more than talent. Okay, one more part. If you are not succeeding in something, it must be because you are not trying hard enough. Find the actions. There are three: are not succeeding, be, and are not trying. All right, find what goes with the actions. Ask yourself, is there anything modifying these words that we need to keep? Succeeding in something must be. These are connected to the meaning. If you did this a little bit differently, please don't worry. Again, this is a messy skill. Okay, who is doing the actions or what? You are not succeeding. It must be. You are not trying. I feel like a jerk reading this sentence. Okay, we have the heart. Now we're going to change the words. Start with you. When Weiss writes the word you here, he's not talking to you specifically, whoever you are. What does he mean? He means people in general, right? This is a general rule. He's not talking to someone special, people. Try are not succeeding. Not succeeding is failing, so I used fail. Next, it. It says it must be. What is it in this sentence? It is the failing, right? If you are not succeeding, it, meaning not succeeding or failing. Now do must be. I put definitely for must and is for be. Then we have you. Again, people are not trying. What's a way to say not trying? I did don't make effort. So we have three parts to this. You fail. Fail definitely is. People don't make effort. All right, let's add the parts that are missing. If. Usually there's no paraphrase for if, but I think there's actually something we can use here. In this case, when or like every time, I think has the same meaning. So I'm going to use that here. If you couldn't think of a paraphrase for if, please don't stress. It's difficult to find. Next one, because. I put caused by. And now the meaning hard enough. How would you add that? I put required. Don't make the required effort. Required meaning enough. Okay, everything's here. I'm going to make a sentence. Before I show you my sentence, think about how you would put these together. I moved the structure around because there are a lot of repeated words here. People, people, fail, fail. And so I put a totally different order than the order that I had. What I came up with is not making the required effort definitely causes people's failure. There were a lot of different ways to put these together. Okay, I paraphrased 3 parts of the text. Now I'm going to put them back together. And this is what I came up with. The word lazy makes American people feel bad because dreams come true in the US. People in the US believe that working hard makes us equal and respect being diligent more than talent. Not making the required effort definitely causes people's failure. Of course, that's a little bit awkward. I want to take that mess and make it sound like me. So I'm going to make some changes. I put the original at the top and then the changes I made at the bottom. And I kept each piece in the same color so that you can see how I move things around without getting rid of anything. My new structure goes like this. The word lazy makes American people feel bad because we believe that dreams come true here and that working hard makes us equal. We respect being diligent more than talent. I added here, we think that, because I don't think Weiss is saying it's true that it's your fault if you're failing. I think he's saying that's what Americans believe. We think that not making the required effort definitely causes people's failing. I feel a lot better now that I've made this less awkward, and it sounds a lot more like me talking. One thing to remember is it sounds like me talking does not necessarily sound like you talking. So if you're looking at this and you're like, that is not how I would have put the final words together, no worries. Paraphrasing is about putting things in your own words. So when it's done, it should sound like you said it, not like I said it. Of course, I'll do the check. Is it the same meaning? Is it different words? Is it a different word order? And does it sound like me? Okay, I hope this extra practice has been helpful for people who are struggling with paraphrasing. If you have a paraphrasing assignment that you were waiting to do until you had more help, go ahead and try it again using these strategies. If you still feel stuck, and maybe you will, again, this is a really hard skill, reach out, let me know. I'm happy to find ways to keep supporting you on your paraphrasing journey. Oh God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die of this video. Cause of death, this video. Just kidding.